What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Fall Obsession podcast. My name is Sam Thrash. Thank you for tuning in. This week, we're joined by Michael Scrogan, who is the host of the Hunting Stories podcast. He had me on his show a few months ago now, and I extended the same invitation to him to come on to Fall Obsession podcast. And he wanted to do something a little bit different, a little bit more unique. And it's kind of led us to doing I don't know, we might even do this again on our show. It turned out really good, but he wanted to have some of our own Fall Obsession team members join in on the conversation, to just hang out, have a good time, chat it up, and share hunting stories like you would in deer camp, like you would around the campfire, in the mountains, all that kind of stuff. So we do just that. We get a group of people together that were able to join us on this evening. And yeah, we had a good time just sharing some stories, sharing some memories, laughing, cutting it up together. It's a good time. So very low key and casual episode, but one of those that will make you guys feel like you're just sitting here hanging out with us. This is also our first podcast to do live as well. We've started doing some live shows here on Fall Obsession Podcast, so some of you may have gotten to tune into this one on the YouTube channel the night that we recorded it. And if you didn't and you're interested in tuning into some live shows in the future, that is going to be something that we're doing more frequently, so be sure you are subscribed to the YouTube for that. And that takes me into the housekeeping for this podcast. I'll start with the YouTube channel. Go subscribe, because we have a lot of stuff like what I just mentioned coming to the platform. Our podcasts are on there, our hunting shows, our films, our gear reviews, all of our major videos and all that kind of stuff are on the YouTube, so be sure you are subscribed to Fall Obsession's channel. Social media pages, go check them out. We're on all the major platforms. If you're active on it, we are probably there as well. Make sure you guys follow. That way you see our daily posts and updates from the field from our staff across the country. We're also trying to be very active and involved in some conservation issues and some other stuff that's been going on here recently, and keeping our ear to the ground with that stuff and sharing information with you guys when it comes to that. Whatever platform you are streaming this podcast on, please make sure you hit that follow or subscribe button, whatever they have up there for you guys. Turn those notifications on if that's an option. That way you guys know every time we drop a new Fall Obsession podcast episode. We post once a week on Mondays. The video version hits the YouTube channel on Thursdays. Unless it's a live show, then it will already be on the YouTube under the live stream tab. FallObsession.com is the website. That's where you guys can go to see everything that there is to see about our brand and the content that we produce. And last but not least, if you guys have not checked out Carbon TV, you need to go take a look. It's like Netflix for hunting, except it's free for you guys. You don't even have to put in your credit card information. You can just start streaming on demand hundreds of different hunting shows, podcasts, and films across that platform from creators and producers across the country in all different genres of the outdoor industry. It's good stuff, and you will find 4 different Fall Obsession produced shows on that platform. This podcast, our staff-inspired video podcast series called Couch Chats, is on Carbon TV, as well as our 2 different hunting shows, Texas Dirt and Midwest Mindset. Guys, go check out Carbon TV. All right, I won't keep y'all waiting any longer. We are going to get to the episode with Michael Scrogan, the host of the Hunting Stories podcast, and we're also joined by our own Fall Obsession team members, John, Mike, and Marissa. You guys are listening to another Fall Obsession podcast.
Oh, you got her, dude. She's down.
Let's go.
Dude, I just shot a deer of a lifetime.
Freaking smoked him.
One with nature, and if you're a believer, one with God.
Definitely gets your heart pumping. Boy, you are in trouble.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to another Fall Obsession podcast. I'm Sam, hosting you guys. We have kind of a roundtable going on this evening. It's a first on our show, and we have Michael, the host of the Hunting Stories podcast, joining us this week. Welcome to Fall Obsession Podcast, man. Happy to have you.
Yeah, Sam, I'm happy to be here, man. Had you on my podcast months back at this point, but man, I've been listening and I love what you do, man. So thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, thanks for listening. I enjoyed coming on your show and sharing some of my stories, and looking forward to hearing some of yours and some of the folks that we have on here as well. But just to kick us off, to break the ice and all that kind of stuff for the podcast, just tell our listeners that are tuning in who you are, how you got into hunting, and how it's brought you to having a podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Michael Scrogan out of Boulder, Colorado, of all places. Probably I might be the only hunter here. Who knows? But yeah, so I've been hunting for just under a decade, about 9 years at this point. And what got me in is I met my wife. Her father and her brother hunted, but not by any means. They weren't passionate hunters. They just like to go out into the woods. Turns out they like to go out to the woods, have a few beers, wake up when they wake up, and just run after elk and hopefully get lucky. Maybe that's where I got my passion for storytelling. But basically, I was like, I had no interest. Grew up, no one in my family ever did it. Had no experience. But I was like, you know what? I eat a lot of meat. Like, I turned 30 at that point. So I was like, all guys at 30 either get into World War II history or barbecue and meat. And I went down the barbecue and meat path, right?
Okay.
So I was like, I eat a lot of meat. So maybe I should go out and see what it's like to shoot one. So I went out, bought a muzzleloader, went out in Washington, honestly thinking, I can't tell the difference between a mule deer, a whitetail, and an elk. I don't know what I'm doing out here. I don't even know if I'll be able to shoot. Turns out I got in front of an elk, had this like come to Jesus moment with you, and I'll tell you guys this story a little bit later here, but like I just fell in love with everything about it. I fell in love with the camaraderie of camp, which is kind of what I'm touring a bunch of podcasts right now, trying to get kind of that vibe of a bunch of people sharing stories with each other. Fell in love with chasing elk, fell in love with archery more recently, and so doing that, one day I was sitting here again in Boulder being like, man, I don't have any hunting friends. I want to hear more stories. I want to meet more hunters. How do I do that? And so that's where the podcast came from. I was just sort of brainstorming how I can meet more hunters. And so I started asking folks way out of my league, being like, hey, would you come on my podcast that I haven't actually started yet? And like Dirk Durham right off the bat was like, yes, let's do it. I got Ted Nugent on the podcast. I've had all sorts of crazy folks on my podcast. Turns out every hunter loves to tell their hunting stories. Oh, yeah. So I've got a range of like huge big league hunters, but I personally love like the average Joe that come on, and I have a huge list of listeners that want to come on and tell their stories. And that's it, man. I've just been doing it for 3 years. New hunter every week, telling their favorite stories. It's led to a lot of hunting opportunity for myself. I've got a lot of new friends. Before the podcast, I knew more vegans than I did hunters, and I fixed that. So I'm in a good place, man. I get to meet great people like you. I got invited to a trip to Hawaii last year. I went elk hunting 2 seasons ago with 2 world champion elk callers. Like, who gets to do that? Like, they had never even met me. They were like, come on out. And so I shot myself a 300+ inch bull, and man, I'm just having the time of my life. So that's me. That's the podcast. That's my hunting story, or that's where my hunting story began.
I gotcha. That's awesome, man. Yeah, you cannot find a better way, I think, to connect with people than through a show or a platform like this. And just speaking as a podcast host myself, like I share a lot of what you said, just as far as you learn so much and you get to meet so many cool people. A lot of the everybody here, if it wasn't for the Fall Obsession brand in general, right? I wouldn't know any of y'all. So that's what's really cool, is to see everything kind of come together. I'm sure John has some elk stories to swap back and forth, because John is actually he's a guide up there in Colorado. Has some experience guiding both for hunting and fishing up there. So he's done quite a lot in that regard as well. What would you say is and I'm not trying to get you to tell your guest stories. I'm more just curious, like the craziest. Your show is called Hunting Stories Podcast. What's the craziest story you've heard?
Oh man, I've so as you can imagine, I've done like 160 episodes or something at this point. Man, a couple stand out. Let's think. I had Caleb Stillions on, and he's a guide in Alaska for grizzlies.
Yeah, I know Caleb.
Every one of his stories, I was like, no, like, what are you doing? What are you putting yourself in that situation for? Cliff Gray, another guy out of Colorado. He's actually been on the Joe Rogan podcast. He told one story specifically about chasing a cougar, and the cougar finding a den, and the dog's going into the den, and then he crawled into the den to like save the dog. Insane. Sadly, I would have let the dog go. Like, that's where I would have been. I wouldn't have done what he did. Man, there's just so many. I've got some of the guys from Eastman's Hunting Journal on where they've literally seen a horse fall off a cliff that was snow kind of builds itself out, but there's nothing underneath it. A horse fell over. And fortunately he wasn't on the horse, but then the snowbank just broke off and the horse just disappeared
Oh,
like
man.
the vast nothingness. So everything you could imagine, as far as like that kind of stuff. I've also You'd be surprised how many hunters have a poop story. Like that seems to keep coming up, where people like are telling me stories about some terrible experience they had in the woods. Luke Cadillo, he runs Gladiators Unlimited, like sort of an MMA podcast here in Colorado. But he was full draw on a bull, and his gut just wasn't having it and let go. So his filled his boots. Like everything you can imagine. I've heard it all. So much so that I've heard multiple guys the very first time they ever shot at a deer killed two with one shot. Like multiple times I've heard that story from different people.
Really?
So yeah, everything you can imagine. Everything
Wow.
you can imagine.
That's-
I don't want to ruin any of them. Every one of those stories is wonderful, and I encourage everyone to go check out the episodes. I don't want to ruin them. It's not my story to tell, but
Right.
they're so good. Yeah, and those are just some off the top of my head out of hundreds of stories.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll get our storytelling on this episode started because two of the things that you just mentioned kind of resonated with me, and the first one you talked about that horse falling over, man. Not that I had anything that extreme, but I'll tell you when I did this last year elk hunt, 25 miles backcountry on horseback, in the mountains of Idaho, that watching what those horses go over was just absolutely insane. And there were a couple of times where one of those horses might lose their footing just a little bit and kind of start to slide down a little bit, and I'm like a little butt puckering moment right there because it's like, oh my gosh, man, I can't imagine going over on one of these horses. This would be insane. But that was one, and then the other one, unfortunately, and I don't want to. I never thought that this episode or this show. It's a poop story.
It always is.
I never thought this episode would go there, man. But I mean, and I'll keep it I'll keep it simple. But just I had some altitude related issues being a Texas boy hunting at 8,000 feet all of a sudden. So first 3 days, I had a roll of toilet paper handy, and I was frequently running off into the woods while these guys were elk hunting to find me a log. So yeah, it was kind of a sucky deal in that regard, but I guess it's true. I guess it's true. All of us have one, right?
Yeah, we all do. We just hope you have TP with you. Otherwise, the stories get real interesting.
Yeah, that's no joke. No joke at all. Well, John, I'm going to kick it to you for a second because I'm curious from the elk standpoint, and I know that I had you on our show here not that long ago, and we talked a little bit about elk hunting and guiding and everything. But man, as a guide, I'm sure you see some pretty interesting characters come through and have some interesting stories. What's kind of an off the wall guiding story that kind of sticks with you a little bit?
That's a tough one.
I kind of put you on the spot a little bit, but
yeah, no. Man, so my first ever client that actually killed an elk, it was this huge 6x7 that, like, we always try and have an idea of what bulls are around, and nobody had seen this elk all summer. Like, nobody knew knew it was there. But it was opening morning, a muzzle loader, and we got to the top of this hill. I bugled, and like 4 or 5 bulls popped off. It's like, sweet. So I sent my guy down the hill like 20 yards, and I crouched down in this little rock hole and started bugling. And they were popping off around us. And I was like, cool, something's going to come in. And then a twig snaps behind me. And I like did the slowest turn of my life. And there, 15 feet behind me was this huge bull. I was like, crap. And it didn't apparently see me. It walked right past me. I could have stabbed it with my knife. And it walks like to within 15 feet behind my hunter, who he's right-handed, and it's on his right side. So he would have had to either do a full turn or swap to his left and try and turn. And it saw him move and ran off. And I tried to bugle at it as it ran, and it kept going, but 4 other bulls started bugling again. So I was like, all right, whatever. Like, sucks that one ran off, but there's still elk around. So we started moving down the hill, and the bulls kept getting closer. We had this cow walk up within 40 yards downwind. She looks like right in my eyes. We stare at each other. I thought she was going to bark and blow the whole thing. She just walks off. I'm like, what is happening? And we get a little farther down the hill, and there's this little 4x4 raghorn, like 80 yards to our left, just going back and forth. My client had killed a like 5x5 a couple years before in a rifle hunt somewhere else. So he's like, I don't really want to shoot that. And then this like 5x5 steps out in the creek below us, and it's thrashing brush. And then there's another bigger bull somewhere close by bugling. And it was one of the most amazing mornings of elk calling I've ever had. And this big bull comes running across the meadow, right across to about 100 yards down the hill, and then straight up at us, right past that 5x5 that was thrashing brush. Like they brushed butts. They couldn't have been any closer, and he didn't care. Neither of them cared. And it got up to like 15 yards from my client, shot right over it. Everything runs off.
Oh,
well,
man.
I mean, in the guiding world, I did my job right there, but it was opening morning. I was like, cool, whatever. Like, so we went back that night, or actually, he reloaded, and we kind of worked our way up this hill, kind of in the direction the elk had gone. And we got up to like tree line, and I was like, we're just going to hang out here for the rest of the day. We're up high, get out of the wind. Our scent's not dumping down to where we think these elk are. And my client, whatever bullets he was using, as he walked, they would like work their way up the barrel. I'm not entirely sure,
What in the
but
world?
he goes to like ram it back down, and he like fully seats it, and he had a mark on his uh ramrod, and it wouldn't go. It was like still a quarter inch above. And apparently, right after that melee of when he shot, and there were elk flying 9 different directions, and I was trying to watch the one that he shot at, his first reload, he wasn't looking when he poured the powder in, and he didn't see any powder like sitting on the rim or still left in the container. So he thought he'd had an empty container with just a bullet in it. So he threw a second powder charge in. So now we're standing on top of this hill with elk below us in an area that I know they probably bedded, and he's got a muzzle loader that's now a hand grenade. And I was like, all right, what's the plan? He's like, well, I can pull the bullet. I'm like, all right, do it. He's like, bullet puller's in the truck. I'm like, you mean the one at the bottom of the hill? And he goes, yeah, that's the one. So we did like a 1.5 mile circuit to circumnavigate where I thought these elk were. We dropped down, hit this road, and it was going to take us probably another 1.5 hours to walk to the truck. And luckily, some archery hunters were coming out behind us, and they gave us a ride back to the truck. We went back to camp. He unloaded the gun, got it all sorted. We had lunch, took a nap, went back that evening. Didn't hear anything. Was like, I know there's elk are in there. So the next morning, same thing, ran it back, nothing. It's like, crap, did we blow them out? All right, I'm going to keep sticking with my plans. We went back to the spot on the top of the hill, sat there the rest of the day, just cow calls here and there, kind of worked our way around, glass of saddle. I was like, man, I think we blew these elk out. And so we started working our way through the timber that evening with that last thermal coming up. And I'd bugle like every 150, 200 yards. And it was nothing. And then finally, we got this like really squeaky, it sounded like a kid with a kazoo, this bugle. And I was like, well, that's not ideal. And that, I think it was that same 4x4 that had been behind us in the morning before, came running right up to like 60 yards broadside. I was like, you gonna shoot him? He's like, no. I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna mess with this one. So I'm cow calling and bugling. And this probably went on for about a minute, and that bull's kind of just trying to figure out what the heck we are when the pine patch, like, I don't know, 80 yards below us, just erupts. It sounds like the T-Rex from Jurassic Park. I was like, oh. And I can see this huge tan body moving, and I'm starting to count points here and there. This is the only time that the Pythagorean theorem we all learned in math class actually came in handy, because I never fully saw the elk. I could see his nose at one point. I could see an antler. I could see the back tip. I could see his butt, and I'm doing math. I'm like, that's a big bull. And it kept coming. I'm bugling. We're like scooching across this log to get into a shooting lane, and it steps out. He shoots, and I could see the impact. I saw blood. I was like, sweet. Reload. Client's over there reloading as I'm watching this elk, and it's standing there doing the like wobble, and then it just walks off. I was like, oh no, this is the worst possible scenario. It's getting dark. The wind's not good. I have no idea where this elk went. We went, looked at blood. It wasn't great. It was kind of like dark and not real frothy. And like, man, maybe he hit it a little back. We looked just in the 50-yard area for like half an hour. I didn't want to spook it if it was just laying there. So we kind of worked our way back out and around. I was like, we're just going to leave it for the night. I'm going to come back in with some of the other pack crew from camp in the morning and see if we can find it, which we did. We went in. He was dead 80 yards away. But it was the coolest 2 days of elk hunting in my entire life.
That's awesome. Where did he end up hitting it? Like,
It was a little bit back and a little bit high, so it flipped the top of the liver right across the top of the lungs. And so all that blood just kind of drained into the body cavity, and that's why there was like next to no blood trail. And it's why it took him a little while, because it wasn't like a double lung. It was just barely across the tops, but he didn't go real far.
nice. That's awesome. I have another question for you. If you guys will like let me just throw them again. I'm a novice hunter, and I've done muzzleloader before. What is a bullet puller? So like my muzzleloader had a breech plug, so I would have just twisted off the breech plug and pushed everything out the back end.
His were like solid cast lead bullets that were greased, which I think is why they kind of bounced up the chamber somehow. It's this little screw looking deal that you stick down there and you screw it into the lead, and then you can pull the bullet.
Huh. Interesting. But so no breech plug. He couldn't have pushed it through.
That's a good question. I don't know. I think his breech plug he had tightened down to a point, and we didn't have a
Okay.
screwdriver or a tool or anything.
Gotcha.
But it all worked out.
Yeah, man. That's an epic hunt. That's awesome.
Hey guys, sorry to cut y'all off from the conversation. We'll get back to it in just a second, but first I want to tell you guys about Hoot Camo. Hoot Camo is one of the best camouflage brands out there for the blue collar hunter. The prices, you can't beat them. The patterns are extremely versatile. They work in so many different environments. I have worn Hoot Camo hunting whitetails, hogs, and turkeys down here in the hardwoods, the mesquites, the scrub brush of Texas. I've worn it in the flatland plains of eastern Colorado hunting mule deer. I've even worn it in the mountains of central Idaho hunting elk. It works in so many different places. It is extremely high quality gear, extremely warm, holds up well against the elements. You cannot beat it. Go to hootcamo.com, use the code FallObsession15 on your next order, no matter how big or small it is, and check out everything that Hoot Camo has on there for you guys. You never know what you're going to encounter out there for sure.
Oh yeah, that was one of the funnest. I've had some other just like other wild ones too, if you ever want to hear those.
You ever how big was the bull? You said it was a monster. You actually broke out the Pythagorean theorem.
Yeah, so for that unit, historically, anybody I guided, I'd always say if it's legal, shoot it. Like 4 points on one side, the Colorado legal. He gross out at 339. So not like massive, but for a unit where you're telling people to shoot a legal raghorn, he was huge. 6x7, he was really nice bull.
Yeah, that's awesome. A 340 bull is huge. I don't care where you are.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I was like, I don't usually get like buck fever with client. All right, I'm not the one behind the gun. I did my job. It's standing there, but that thing stepped out, and I had a little bit of the shakes going.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I bet that guy was fired up.
He was stoked.
Rightfully so. Michael, you mentioned earlier a story that you said you could share with us when you referenced your come to Jesus moment. You got my curiosity piqued. I want to hear about it.
Okay. So this is my second hunt ever, and it's in Washington. Muzzleloader elk. So we're staying on trend here. And what's funny is my first hunt, I don't remember much about it. I was scared in the woods. It was dark. I didn't like it. It was nothing about hunting was I interested about, but they invited me. Father-in-law, brother-in-law, I just went to the second time. But we put in Washington, most tags are just going to be spikes. This second year, we drew a bull tag. And because it's like they combine all the points of the group. So the guys had all these points. I had 1 point, and they're like, you bastard. You just used all our points, and we all drew. Like, I was super lucky. That being said, well, I'll tell a story before I say too much more. But this season, about 8 months before, I'd actually torn my Achilles. So I'm not in the best shape. I'll start with that. Also, again, not a hunter at this point. I'm just a guy who was invited. So I roll in my Volkswagen Tiguan into camp like 10 p.m. the night before opening day. And I'd never been to this unit before. It wasn't the same unit that we drew the year before. It was a special tag. So we roll in and we just like they're already at camp drinking, and I'm like, all right, let's go. We get to bed, and all night long is bugling, like everywhere, just bugling. I'm like, what is this? I've never experienced anything like this in my life. I was like, they're going to come stomp our tent. And we've got a big canvas wall tent. But I'm just all night long, can't sleep a wink because they don't shut up. We wake up in the morning and everyone's like, all right, you guys ready to go do this? And I'm like, yeah, did you guys hear that? Every one of them slept through it. Nobody had heard a bugle, but they were bugling all night long.
Wow.
By the way, my buddy Steven and I, we had not really scouted. We had no idea what to do. We're like, hey, Onyx says there's a field this way. Let's like just walk to that field. We walk out there, we hunt the morning, nothing happens. We come back, we make breakfast. Meanwhile, my father-in-law, my brother-in-law, they've got a dried up wallow that they put some cameras on. They know that there's some elk there, so they're sitting in that wallow. So they're over there, probably about 2 miles north of us. We're at camp, just hanging out at a field next to our camp. Really great strategy. Either way, we come back to camp, have breakfast. My buddy had in Washington at this time, you could bait. I don't think you can do it anymore, but we had backpacks full of apples. And we're like, we've got this other camera. Let's go out there with these apples and drop them from the camera and then go hunt that hillside. And so we drive like 2 miles east to this other area, and we're literally sitting there. It's probably 10, 11 in the morning, and we're baseball pitching apples to each other with sticks of wood, just smashing these apples all over the place to get the aroma out, just like having fun, just being idiots that don't know what they're doing in the woods. And then we hear a bugle. And it's like midday. We're like, what is that? That doesn't make any sense. Like, and we're like, it's probably some hunter, because we're so like we know so much about this that we know that that's definitely a hunter because there's no way an elk would bugle at this time. But it just keeps bugling, and it just keeps bugling, and it just keeps bugling until it gets to the point where we realize it's more than one elk or bugle. So like it's like one right after the other, and they're just going like, holy shit! Like, is it okay if I swear, Sam? Is that all right?
Yeah. You won't hear me do it, but I don't put any restraints on my guests, so you're good.
I won't be too dirty here, but we hear this going off. So we run down from our baseball practice down the hill, and there's this big valley, and we're parked on the opposite side of a valley across this creek. But we're looking across the valley on the other side of the mountain, and in this one patch, it's all trees, but in one patch, just a huge bull walks into that patch and just rips a bugle. And like it's all we can see. We're like, oh my God. Like those are elk. Those are not people. And so like we just panicked. We didn't know what to do. We're still wearing like our early morning stuff. I've still got a half a bag of apples that I'm carrying on my back. And we have to go right to get around the river to where we can cross the river. So we just run this way. And we hit the river, cross over. And my buddy, God bless him, he's in great shape, but he's like, we're going to run this elk down. At the time, I didn't know you couldn't catch an elk. Either way, he's just running up this hill right after that bull. And again, I had just gotten the okay from the doctor to like not wear a brace on my foot. So we're running up this hill, and I get maybe 100 yards up the hill, and I'm like, nope, I can't follow. There's nothing I can do about this. I just can't go up there. But I know the road goes around this big finger ridge, and it looked like it was kind of going to the other side. So I just drop down and I run around the road. So I'm down on the road, like bag full of apples, just like terrible shape, just trying my best to get to the other side. Cars are passing me on this dirt road, and like I'm just some idiot jogging down the road in full camo, muzzle loader, backpack, everything. And they don't stop, they don't say anything, they just drive right by me. And I just keep going until all of a sudden I hear a poop. I'm like, oh my goodness, somebody shot at these bulls. Next thing I know, a bull runs down, stops on the road about 70 yards in front of me, and I pull up my muzzle loader, and directly, like literally framing the elk is somebody's camp. So it's another wall tent. And I'm like, no, I can't take that shot. So I'm just like huffing and puffing, and the elk runs off into the woods. And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I'm just like in the moment, completely lost. So I run to where he was standing, and I look into the woods where he was, and I hear something behind me. So I turn around, there's another bull. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like elk hunting's great. This is the coolest thing I've ever done. This is, mind you, opening day. And so I turn around, pull my muzzle loader up, and I just let her rip. And I nail the bull. The only thing that they'd really given me as far as advice was like, if you shoot, put another one in. So I open my little case and I'm putting my, my black powder in. I'm dropping sabots in and I'm panicking. I drop the whole case. I lose everything. So I'm digging in the grass trying to find my powder and my sabots. Taking my ramrod, shoving the everything in there. A car drove by me while I'm like panicking in a ditch on the side of the road doing all of this stuff. Either way, I do that and I'm like, okay, now what? I'm like, well, I guess I go to where it was. I don't know what else to do. So I walk up there. And the next thing I hear is my brother-in-law. Again, he was like 2 miles north of us. And he's like, who's shooting? And I'm like, Dylan, it's me. And he's like, I just shot an elk. And I'm like, I shot one too. And we're like, oh my God. And so like he's yelling and he's like, I have no idea where mine went. Apparently with him, he heard the bugling as well and came in from his side. He told my father-in-law, because my father-in-law was too slow, he's like, sit down. I'm going to put a pin on you. I'm coming back for you, but I'm going to go chase these elk. And so he chased till he realized he was in a herd of about 40 cows with these 2 bulls about to go at it. And he waited until that bull was maybe 10 yards, and then broadside 50 caliber muzzleloader just poof, nailed him. So that's his story. But I get to the spot on this game trail where I shot that elk, and I hear him yell, I have no idea where my elk is. And I'm like, me either, but I'm standing where I shot it. Just come to me. And we're just screaming in the woods because that's what you should do right after you shoot any animal is just like yell at each other. So we're yelling. He comes to me, and then I realize about 60 yards down the path, the game trail, is another bull elk. And I look at it, and I'm like, it's got a hole. Sweet. That must be my bull. Oh, no, it's got 2 holes. Shit. I think we shot the same bull. So we're sitting there, and we're like, yep. And they're both lethal shots. What's crazy is he shot it like 10 yards away with a 50 cal. But with the adrenaline that he had as he was about to go into that fight with that other bull, he was on his feet after 2 shots for probably about 35 minutes before he laid down and expired. And I didn't know at the time, like, I should probably have put another round in him. Again, I was super novice. But I was like, I'm just going to sit here. And he's like, so I'm sitting there with my brother-in-law. He's like, oh, God, my dad. I got to go find Dad. So he's like, I'll be back. And so he just runs off. So now I'm sitting here alone, again, by myself. No idea what I'm doing, just watching this elk slowly die. Wasn't a great experience for me. It was really heavy because it was the first time I'd ever shot at anything. In the moment, I had no hesitation. I was cool as a cucumber, but like sitting there watching it die was really, really hard. Eventually, my other buddy came over, the one that had run up and over the mountain. He missed everything. He didn't see a damn thing. But he rolls in, and he's like, what happened? And I'm like, you see that over there? That's a bull. I don't know whose bull it is at this point.
It's our bull.
But it's a bull. So we go over there, and the 2 of us start gutting him out. While we're doing this, that camp that I mentioned earlier, they come back to camp at 1, 2, 3 o'clock, whatever time it is. And they're like, what are you guys doing up there? And we're like, well, we shot a bull. They're like, you shot a bull 100 yards uphill from our camp? We're like, yep. So we gutted it out, and then we were able to pull the truck around, back it up to the hill, and the 6 of us just slid it down the hill right into the truck bed, took it back to Camp Pole. So that was my first elk hunting experience. I was like, this ain't so bad, So here's a question I have for you guys, and I ask everyone this when I tell them this story. Whose bull is that?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. Cause he shot it first? Is that?
He shot it first.
Yeah.
I shot it second. It was still on its feet. His shot was double lung and hit the heart. My shot was lung spine. I have the sabot for mine. It was in the spine. We found it in the hide. It came out the other side.
Ooh, man.
What do you guys think? Mike, Marissa, John?
Man, I think it's your bull. You were the last one to put lead in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
It would
That's
be,
what I'm thinking as well.
yeah, it would be hard to argue otherwise, but I mean, I don't know. At the same time, if that first shot hadn't have happened, you don't know if that second opportunity would have been the same, right? But
True.
Oh man, yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, if the same hunter had shot him twice, right? It's the second one that's putting him down. So yeah, that makes sense. That's tough, man. That's a. I mean, I certainly have never experienced anything like that.
Yeah.
Where
Well, I'll tell you, as the low man on the totem, I did not get that bull.
I see. All right.
And what's funny is everyone's answer usually ends up being me when I ask people like, where do you think that rack is hanging? Because it's a good 300-inch bull. Wow. My brother-in-law, it wasn't even a question. They're like, no, that's Dylan's. That's his. Like no one questioned it. And then the first time I actually learned that the second shooter legally in a lot of states like Oregon, some guys will actually wait till they hear someone shoot, try and get to the bull before, and then shoot a dead bull. In Oregon, technically, that's the second person's bull. And Cody Rich, if you know Cody Rich, Rich Outdoors, he had happened like 3 times to him where somebody stole a bull that he'd already shot just by walking up to the dead bull and shooting.
Oh, dude,
So,
that's ridiculous.
That's the law in Oregon.
That's a fight waiting to happen.
Most people kind of feel it. Yeah. So that's kind of my come to Jesus, like from not knowing what an elk would look like when I actually ran into one to being in the middle of a rut fest with 2 bulls just battling and then like just running, completely losing my sense of like I had to ice my leg for a week. Like it was so beat up because of that surgery that I just had. Like I shouldn't have been doing what I was doing, but it just lit a fire in me. And ever since then, all I've wanted to do is elk hunt, just seeing that happen. So.
Hey folks, if you guys are in the North Texas area like I am, then you need to go to Bear River Archery and Pro Shop in Van Alstyne, Texas. Justin and the guys up there have an incredible operation set up. They will take great care of you and all of your archery needs. They are the official bow shop in North Texas, a Fall Obsession. I love going there, and I'm picky. If you guys know me, I am very selective on who I let work on my bow. I will let Justin work on my bow. They do great stuff. Check out Bear River Archery and let them know that Fall Obsession sent you. That's pretty neat, man. And it's really interesting and unique that part of your story with that, and you touched on it briefly, was, just I think you described it as a heaviness almost, watching that bull die. There so many people can hunt for years and never see anything like that. I think back to a podcast I did a year or two ago with our production director over here and one of my good friends, Nick, and he talked about a deer that he had shot that year that was a rather tough track, but when he came up on that deer, when he finally got to it after trailing it and tracking it for so far following the shot, it wasn't dead yet, and he wasn't really in a great spot where he could get in and get a good shot on the deer, but his first shot was lethal. And long story short, he ended up sitting there and just watching that deer take its last breath, right?
It's hard.
And that's a moment that so many hunters just do not ever experience. And I think for any, like Nick is not a novice hunter, right? That's for anybody, it's a heavy moment. Just we don't ever get to see the last little bit of life in the life that we're taking, right? And that, I think, if anything, gives a hunter a certain level of respect for an animal, and for the hunt itself. That it's that right there, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I cherish that hunt and everything about it, but I do regret that I wish I did. I wish I knew to follow it up. Like, yes, I got to experience that. I would have rather put the elk down. Like I said, it was on its feet for 30 minutes. Then I was just sitting there watching, with and bubbles just coming down the side, and I was like, this is crazy. Like I don't know why it never crossed my mind to fire another round, but I was just lost in the moment of like how difficult it was.
Yeah,
they're such durable critters. It's insane.
Ooh. It's insane. We couldn't find its heart because my brother-in-law, a 50 caliber at 10 yards. I don't know like how it was on its feet for 30 minutes, but it was, and we couldn't find its heart. It is absolutely insane. So. But the rest of that hunt was great. Actually, my father-in-law has passed away, and I did a memorial episode, and we talked about that. Later, we actually got into a beehive, and that story is hilarious. So I just encourage people to jump on and listen to that story in that episode, because my brother-in-law got stung, I think, 50 times.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
He still has PTSD on that. But who wants to go next?
Well, I was gonna toss it to Mike first. And just I know we've had a lot of elk hunting talk so far, and I don't know if you have any experience in the elk woods, Mike, but want to see what you typically find yourself hunting, and what kind of memorable stories you have that are sticking out in your mind that you'd like to share.
Yeah, I've actually have never had the chance to go elk hunting, but that's something that's pretty high up on the list I would like to do. But usually just whitetail deer, some coyotes in our area, stuff like that. But I had one instance where me and my dad were hunting together. It was gun season a couple years ago, opening day, and we had a buck that was at the feeder that we had, and he kept leaving and coming back, leaving and coming back. Well, we were like, well, we're not seeing anything else, and we're sitting there, and he hasn't shot a deer for it's probably been 10 years, and we're up there like fighting with each other. You shoot it, no, you shoot it, and it was just so funny. It's just a good memory that I had, and then he ended up shooting it, and I actually have it mounted on my wall in here in my gun room where we're sitting. So it was that's probably the most memorable story I have. Just the relationship that we have, and that we could get out and do something like that. It's tough with the work that we do. It's hard to find time to get together and do stuff like that. So
That's awesome, man. You'd be
yeah.
surprising how often stories just like this come up on the podcast, where it's like going out and spending that time with someone who's really important to you, regardless of how difficult the pack out was or the hunt itself or the weather or whatever. It's just sometimes it's
Yeah.
just about who you're with and having that time, especially when that time's hard to find. So
Yeah,
I
it's the
appreciate
memories
that,
for
man.
sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you say that with the work you do and everything, it's hard to find the time. I'm just curious, like what kind of time do you normally have in the hunting season to spend in the woods?
Well, me and my dad, we have a family-owned construction company, so we both run it. I do the day-to-day, and he covers big picture things. And so usually I'll get up before work. We don't start till 9. I can hunt in the mornings during deer season. And then after 5 o'clock, usually in the evenings, I can go and hunt. And the weekends, when I can find time to do that. Just like right now, we're working like crazy. I worked another 8 hours today, so it's never ending,
Oh
never
yeah,
ending.
that's a good thing though. Yeah,
It
good,
is. It's a
good to have.
blessing and a curse.
Yeah, blessing and a curse. Good to have work for sure.
Absolutely.
Marissa, you've been quiet this episode. I want to kick it over to you and see what kind of memories that you have that are sticking out in your mind. Any adventures that you'd like to share from your hunting experiences?
Um, I have a lot. I've been quiet because if you didn't see my little guest star down here, my
Oh yeah.
dog is she's
I
having a little panic attack.
at this point I could probably make just a podcast episode off of like the pet appearances that have
Oh yeah.
that have occurred randomly with myself or guests on the show. It happens all the time.
Yeah. But she actually has one of my most memorable ones. When she was 10 weeks old. I have one very good one with my dog, and then I have a lot with my big sister because I am my mother's only child, and my dad has another daughter, my sister, but it's just us two. And she's 13 years older than me, so I've never been like, like super close with her, but that was like the only thing we could do together because she's 13 years older than me. I mean, who wants to take their kid sister to like go hang out with their high school friends? No one. So that was something her and I would always do together. We had this one time. So we had this rickety old box blind. It is like 6 pieces of plywood, elevated, and it's been in this spot in the woods for, I kid you not, probably like 9 years at this point. There's a hole in the floor, there's a hole in the wall, there's no windows, just cutouts. And we're sitting there, and you can hear something like on the side of the blind, like scratching. And she's like, stop making that noise. I'm like, I'm not making a noise. I'm like, I'm sitting here. She's like, sit still. I'm like, I'm just sitting here. I don't know what you want from me. I'm 7 years old. And she's like, okay, I'm gonna move and I'm gonna check it out. And you had to like move very carefully in here, otherwise you probably were going to fall through the floor. My dad ended up putting his foot through the floor once, but that was another story. And so she's like, I'm gonna go look. I'm gonna stick my head out the window. We have seen no deer. We've seen nothing all day. Like we've seen a squirrel. I'm like, this is dumb. And she sticks her head out the window. She's like, I think it's a mouse. I don't know. And she's like, okay, just sit back down. It goes away for a little bit, and it comes back, and it's like behind her now. She's like, okay. She can hear it. You can hear it like on the wall. You can tell it's coming up toward the window. She takes her phone and she sticks it out the edge of the window. And this is the world's fattest squirrel I've ever seen. And she goes, "Holy hell!" In the middle of the woods. And the squirrel's still just chilling on the wall. I'm like, "What are you gonna do?" She's like, "That thing's gonna come in here." I'm like, "What are you gonna do?" So she whips out her like first pocket knife she's ever owned, because I have my first one and she has her first one and it's about this long. I'm like, what is that gonna do in this situation? And she's like, "I don't know, I'm gonna stab it. If it comes up here, I'm just gonna stab it." And so she's sitting there like this with her hand like aimed toward the window. She's just waiting for this squirrel to come and waiting. And I'm just 7-year-old little me in my white plastic lawn chair. I'm like, okay. My feet are up off the floor. I'm like, I don't want anything to do with this. I just want to go back home. We always have such a good time. And this little squirrel sits on the ledge. She throws her hand at it. She hits the wall. She like splits the drywall, or not the drywall, the plywood, misses the squirrel. The squirrel falls out of the window, and she missed the squirrel entirely. I'm like, "You didn't even get it." She's like, "We're done. We're going home. It's like 10 in the morning. We've only been out there since like 7." And I'm like, "Yep, we can go. Just call Dad. We're done. We're done."
Damn
We have-
squirrels.
I
That's
know.
funny. I have
We
a
have
good squirrel story for you.
Yeah, let's hear it.
It's not a hunting story, but I did shoot a squirrel with my bow. Um,
Oh.
Yeah, so I live in the suburbs near Boulder, Colorado, right? And we've got a ton of very fat and very happy squirrels. And my neighbors, they know I hunt, so they were like, "Hey, can you kill these?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, can I kill these? These are just like, squirrels. They're on your lawn. Like, what do you want me to do?" And so for years, I've been like, "No, no, sorry, I can't." We bought a new outdoor patio couch, and day one, this damn squirrel nibbled its way and just destroyed the arm. And the reason I hadn't been trying to kill these squirrels, my wife has a problem with death. She just doesn't want to be around it. She loves that I hunt, but she doesn't want to see anything die. It's just her personal choice. So she's always like, "No, nope, you can't kill squirrels. You can't kill squirrels. You can't kill squirrels." That couch get messed up. I look at her and she's like, "Just don't do it around me," is all of a sudden her answer. I'm like, "All right, okay." So what I do, I have a range on the side of my house. It's about 30 yards for my archery. I have 2 targets. So I take one, put it on top of the other, and just give it about a 6-inch little platform. And I put a little bowl of bird seed because they seem to always be under her bird feeder. So I put the bird seed right in front of the target on top of the first target. And then I took like, the Wise cameras, like those $20 cameras you can connect to your Wi-Fi. I just put it on my kid's little playground right next to it and pointed at it. I was like, "Hey, I'm just going to go to work. If something comes and bugs this seed, I'll get a little alert on my phone." 15 minutes after I set this thing up, bing, I get a little alert. So I look at my phone and I'm like, "Oh my goodness, there's a squirrel literally hanging upside down off the first target, just hanging down over the center of my target." And I'm like, "This is amazing." So I go upstairs and I tell my wife, because her office sits looking into the backyard. And I'm like, "Don't look outside. Just don't look outside." Because she doesn't want to see it. Don't do it around her. So I thought that was the right answer. Turns out later in the story, I'll tell you that was not the right thing to tell her. And so also my father-in-law there, and at the time we had an au pair from Argentina, and I'm like, "Guys, don't go outside. I'm going to go shoot my bow." So I grab my bow, I go out the front of the house, and I come to the side to where I shoot from, and it's 30 yards to the target, and he's just sitting there on the target. I'm like, "Well, this is way too easy." So I take my phone, and I actually do like a screen capture, so I'm recording the Wise camera to see, what happens. And so I set my phone down, I pull back, and I'm using field points, not broadheads, which was a mistake, but I shoot, whoop, nail him, center mass, just whoop. And I'm like, "Yes." Then I realized, oh, that didn't kill him. That just went straight through. Like, he went bonkers. You guys may not know this, but squirrels growl when they're really pissed off. So it went right through him. I got the whole thing on video. He goes just, going crazy, and he wiggles his way all the way down to fletchings. And I go over to him like, "Oh, God, what do I do? What do I do?" And I can't grab the arrow and pull it out of the target because he's going so crazy, and he's just like a tiny little chihuahua. I was like surprisingly intimidated by this little squirrel. So I run back to the house and I grab a broom and I use the broom's like straw to split the arrow, so I can basically block him from attacking me as I pull it out of the target. I pull it out of the target, and he's heavier than I expect, so I end up dropping the arrow, and he just runs away with my arrow. And I've got like 31-inch arrows. Like, he's gone. And I'm like, what just happened? Right? And so the squirrel's gone. So like now I'm like walking around with a broom like a caveman with like a club trying to find this squirrel with his arrow. Eventually, he's hiding under a box in our recycle area. He's got a 30-inch arrow and a luminoc. It wasn't that hard to find. So I go over there and I lift it, grab the arrow, give him a one tap, and that's the end of that story. And I was going to eat it. What I didn't know is inside, we have this window that looks into the backyard. My father-in-law and the au pair and my son and all these people just were cheering like crazy when I nailed it because there was one arrow. I just drilled it. And so they're like, wow, yeah. But turns out that was more than enough to make it so my wife didn't want to talk to me for at least a week because of that whole death thing. So she's like, I told you not to do it when I'm around. And I'm like, I told you not to be around when I did it. Like I said, don't look out the window. She's like, everyone was cheering. And I'm like, that's not my fault. It was a great shot. Like, I can't tell that. I love that story. I'm not allowed to tell it when she's around, but that's my squirrel story.
Hey guys, Trophy Edits is a Fall Obsession podcast partner. We all have mounts on our walls that represent a significant moment, a significant harvest in the woods for each and every one of us, and photographs can do the same. I'm sure you guys have pictures from years past, hunting with loved ones or being in the woods with family and friends that also represent those big moments. And what Trophy Edits does is they showcase those moments for you guys, just absolutely make your pictures explode and to the level that you guys can put them on the wall and also have that memory forever represented in your home, your office, your man cave, whatever it might be. Give Trophy Edits a chance to do the work for you guys. And again, they make those pictures just absolutely awesome with their professional team of editors. So go to Trophy Edits website. The link is in the podcast description. That lets them know that you guys came from us. And use the code FALLOBSESSION at checkout to save you guys some money. That is hilarious.
I will say the squirrels were gone for several weeks. All of them. They figured out where not to be.
Yeah, send a message. Golly, man.
They learned.
Yeah,
Holy
honestly,
cow.
I didn't think I'd hit it, right? Like a squirrel at 30 yards, but it was center mass. But yeah, it turns out the field points just went straight through, like did no damage to him. Like it just basically just sort of pinned him.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that, I mean, I've always thought about that. I don't think I've ever shot a squirrel with my bow, actually, but I've always thought about that, like, man, am I just, like, putting a dart through them at that point and pinning them to whatever's behind them? And you kind of answered that question for me, so.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, most likely I'm going to miss, so how do I make sure my arrow's okay is, like, my main thought process, and that's why I built this backstop and all that, but turns out I hit him.
Yeah.
Didn't expect to.
Yeah, man, both of y'all's, like the story that Marissa told and the one you told, it reminded me of a couple over the years for me. One of them, like Marissa, the one that you talked about, reminded me when I first started hunting with my dad. I was probably around the same age, like 7 years old or something like that. And the first time my dad took me hunting with him, I'd never been hunting. My dad had hunted a little bit growing up, but this was the first time that he actually took me with him deer hunting, and he got invited by another gentleman to come and shoot a couple does on his lease or whatever. And he had already shot one doe earlier in the afternoon at a different spot, and that's its own cool story. But the one I'm thinking of, we were sitting that evening in a box stand, and I'm a 7-year-old kid, and I'm like falling asleep. Like I'm over here, my head's rubbing on the side of this stand because I'm nodding off and going to sleep. My dad keeps poking me. He's like, "Hey, wake up! You're making all this noise." Jabbing on me a little bit and everything. And then finally, I like did it 2 or 3 times, I think. And finally, I wake up and I look up, and there's deer out there in front of me. He's got his rifle up, and I get up. I was like, "Dad, there's a deer out there." He's like, "Yeah, I know." And he's getting ready to shoot and everything. And now me having a 7-year-old that I'm starting to take hunting, I understand where his mindset was in that moment. As a 7-year-old kid, I thought I was telling my dad there were deer in front of him. My dad had other plans. But Yeah, that just for whatever reason that's always stuck in my mind. As he shot one of those deer, and that was the first day actually in the deer woods with my dad, and he shot two total that day and everything. But your story made me think of that. And the other one that you told Michael was this was a few years ago, probably I don't know 5 or 6 years ago. I we didn't have it was before we had our property, our Texas dirt property that we have now, and I had a season without really anywhere to hunt. And my father-in-law, he has they just got a few acres, just like 4 acres or something like that. And it's pretty well maintained, like they mow pretty much the whole thing, but it backs up to a whole bunch of just woods and private land, and they have a relationship with that private landowner, but not one to deer hunt with necessarily. But he was like, hey, if you want to put a tree stand, and a feeder or whatever, because we can bait down here in Texas. He's like, you can put one on my side on the back of the property back there and just hunt back here a couple times this year if you need somewhere to go. So I did. I did just that, and there were some does coming in pretty regularly, and so I was up in the tree one evening, and my wife and kids are up at the house, and from the kitchen window you can look down the hill and you can see the tree stand and the feeder down there. So they're like watching the play-by-play from the kitchen window. These deer come out, and there was this one doe, she kept doing laps, and she was walking like she'd walk all the way to the fence, come all the way back around, and walk 16 yards from the tree. And there was an older doe in the mix that I was wanting to shoot. I was like, if I can shoot one of these, if I get to pick one of these does I want to shoot, it's going to be this bigger, older one. This one was still a good size. So I let this other doe do this lap like 2 or 3 times, walking right underneath me practically. And I finally I realized this older one, she was kind of hanging back. I was like, all right, I can't let this other one walk past me a fourth time and not put an arrow in her. So I finally shot her, smoked her. She didn't run far and crashed, and immediately the back door flies open and here comes everybody walking out of the house. I was like, this is not deer hunting to me. This just does not feel like the deer hunting that I remember. This is totally different. And they all come down, they're like, what took you so long? Why did it take you so long to shoot that deer? And I was trying to explain to him like why I let the deer walk past me, 2 or 3 times first before I actually shot it. But it was cool. Like immediately, there's the family, there's the kids, all that kind of stuff right there to help you recover the deer and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I was just like this. I feel like I don't know. Like if this is what the Seek One guys feel like, I guess it's not for me. I don't know, man. It just I was in the backyard. It just did not feel right.
That's funny.
But
that's a great story. I love it when the family can get involved, though, even though it didn't feel quite right. I bet your kids and your wife were fired up.
Oh yeah, no, we had a good time for sure, and it's cool to look at those pictures again, and I filmed the hunt too, so like it might even be on our YouTube channel somewhere for all I know. But yeah, it was cool after that. It was just the hunter in me that was used to being out in the woods and being by myself and not having an audience, I guess I would say. That was a little bit of an adjustment on that one. So yeah. But well, man, I know we're the clock's ticking and everything on our episode, but I do want to chat a little bit with you on just in your mind some of the biggest takeaways that you've had being able to talk to people and learn from others on your own show, just hearing their stories and their experiences, and what just in general terms you think some of the biggest takeaways for you as both a hunter and a person have been in that regard.
Put me on the spot, man. Put me on the spot. When I started my podcast, I was like, how do I have a podcast where I don't actually do any of the talking? And that's where I came up with my hunting stories, right? So, man, I think I pointed to a little bit after Mike's story, which is like hunt with people that are important to you. Mm-hmm. Like even if it's not this grand epic tale, like those are the stories that often are told, like more often than you would think. I would say maybe even a quarter of the stories that you're going to hear are somebody's story about being with either their son the first time or daughter for the first time hunting, or being there or with 3 generations with grandpa and dad and themselves or their kid. Like I think that's one thing that stands out specifically. I'll also, I mean, it always comes up. It always comes up. So
Yeah.
always have TP in your bag, like that one. People have started coming on my podcast and they're like, I know you like poop stories. And I'm like, whoa. I'm not the poop guy. Everybody likes poop stories.
Let's not start there.
It's
Let's
not
not
me.
start
It's
there.
everybody, okay?
I say that, and that's where I started with this podcast. So
Exactly, right? I mean, I brought it up, but yeah, so maybe it is me. But always have TP in your bag. That's another one. Man, I don't know. That's a great question. I probably need to spend a little bit more time thinking about that. There's been so many stories, and they're all so different, but there are some similarities. Get out there. Get out and hunt as much as you can. I hear a lot of the Eastern guys be like, "Oh, I've never elk hunted. I always wanted to." What's stopping you? Like, go make it happen is what I'll say. Colorado got rid of non-resident over the counter, but the secondary draw came out. There's plenty of tags still out there, guys. So the opportunity is still there. And that'd be another thing that I would say. If you have something you want to chase, go chase it. Like, you're only gonna get older. And you're only have more obligations, so just make it happen. Find a way to do it, because that's something that comes up often. I've never done that. I've always wanted to.
Yeah.
So just make it happen.
No, I agree with that for sure. I spent, I had hunted Texas my whole life, never branched out, went anywhere else really at all, and in I guess it was 2018, our vice president here at Fall Obsession, Drew, he was on our team back then, and he had invited me to come up there on I think it was an elk hunt originally, and I just financially I couldn't swing it. So he was like, "Well, what about pronghorn?" And we're talking about Montana. He's like, "What about pronghorn? The tag's cheaper, and this is what I got to work with as far as access and where we could go and stuff." And I ended up doing it. Lucked out, third day bow hunting, shot a Pope and Young buck with my bow over a water hole. Tickled to death. Realized the next year when I went back up there how lucky I was, because we were hunting a different piece, a different area, and lot harder hunting. Basically, I ended up eating a tag sandwich. But all as to say, this was like my first time out of the state of Texas, and I'm going to Montana. And I was ate up with it. I loved it. So that was 2019 that I had the tag sandwich. So 2020 and 21 and 22, 3 years in a row, I kept putting in for that archery tag in Montana because I kept wanting to go back and do it. And those 3 years, I did not get drawn for the tag that I had been drawn for the 2 years prior, which was, I mean, I think COVID might have had something to do with that, because there was an influx in people starting to put in for that kind of stuff and bow hunting and all that. But neither here nor there. After not getting drawn for the third year, I kind of was like, what am I doing? I'm like, yes, I do want to go back and hunt pronghorn again at some point. 100% I do. But I keep putting in to experience the same thing again when I have all these other things I keep telling myself I'm going to go do. Like, at some point I got to go do them. And so that's what led to 2023 going on that mule deer hunt. And I told that story on your podcast, the Colorado mule deer hunt that I went on with Tim.
Yeah.
And then this last year was Idaho elk. So trying to, go on these different experiences. And my goal is to do something different every year. Like that's what I would like to do. And to start, I mean, call it a bucket list if you want, but to start crossing some things off. You keep saying, "Hey, I want to go do this one day," but hey, at some point, one day is going to be here, and you got to make it happen.
Yep.
So,
yeah, or one day is always next year, which doesn't work for most people. I try and, like you, I don't try and do one thing every new year, but I'm like, I put a target on an animal, and I'm like, I'm gonna go chase him. Axis deer in Hawaii.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the show. Hope you guys are enjoying it. There's so many different places that you guys can tune in to Fall Obsession Podcast, and one of them is the Outdoor Call radio app. Outdoors Dan from Respect the Game TV, he created an app that you can download on any device where you can stream hunting shows and podcasts on a loop every single day. Our show, Fall Obsession Podcast, plays on that loop on Mondays. That's the same day as our new publications on the other apps. And there's also tons of other hunting shows and podcasts on there that you guys can listen to. Go download the Outdoor Call radio app today. It is free. You can start streaming immediately. And be sure that you follow their Facebook page, because Outdoors Dan does some live radio shows throughout the week. And even if you are not local to those radio stations, his broadcasts are shared on his Facebook Live. It's Outdoors Dan and the Outdoor Call radio app. Go download it today.
Right there. Like I went last June. I was unemployed, and I told my wife, like, I saved up for this. I'm going to go. And I shot 2 deer on Molokai, and it was just such an amazing experience. My next big hunt is going to be a black bear. I've never shot a bear. I've had one opportunity where I had a tag in my pocket, and then I got scared and was like, what am I doing with a bow and a bear? I'm getting out of here. And I ran away. A little bit more to that story, but that's the long and short of it. But yeah, man, just find a species that you want to go hunt. Make it happen.
Yeah.
I mean, and in light of what's going on right now in the government, right? Like public land, who knows if that's going to be here forever? So get out there and use it. Because you never know if some crazy guy from Utah is going to take it away.
Right. No.
Yeah.
Fair point for sure. I'm curious because I've talked to a couple people, not necessarily on the show, but guys who have hunted axis deer over there. Did you bring the meat back with you? And if so,
I did.
How did you package that and do that? This is purely curious, and I can tell you where I'm going with it here in a second. But
yeah, I did. We found someone on the island who had like a deep freeze, and so we brought vacuum sealers with us. So shot the deer. I'm the only guy there that was like actually probably going to pack, or like I corded it up. I shot it like 2 miles in. Like I had to pack it out. So I chopped the whole thing up, brought it back with me, put it into roasts and all this stuff, vacuum sealed it, and then froze it. And then I have this really cool cooler. It's actually made by Baku, the bike company. And it'll fit a full elk. In fact, I shot a cow moose this year, and it fit my entire cow moose into this one cooler, but it's like a bag cooler. So it folds up into something that's like smaller than my chest. So I put that in a large suitcase, folded up, and then with my other stuff, and then I emptied out my bow case. I emptied out the foam, and then used my bow case to I put my clothes and stuff in there as the replacement for the foam. And so when I shot it, I had this giant cooler. And so I just put 2 deer's worth of meat in the cooler that was frozen solid, jumped it on a plane onto another plane. And when I got back from Molokai to Hawaii, it was still frozen solid. I did run into some issues with the head. They wouldn't let me take the head on the plane, which kind of makes sense because it wouldn't fit under the plane. So I would have had to carry this like rotting head with me in the cabin, and they wouldn't have that. But I found someone to Euro it and then ship it to me.
Gotcha.
But axis deer is amazing. If you guys haven't tried it, it is so good. It
is delicious. I've killed one. I was on a hunt back in 2016 as a cameraman, videoing for another guy, and I just connected with the guys there in camp and the owner and everything. And by the last day, most guys were filling their tags, and you had a few other guys that were going after some extra animals, and they just threw that out there like, hey, you want to shoot a axis doe today? I was like, say less. So yeah, I got to take home some meat on that one and a hide, and so that was pretty cool. But the reason I ask you that question is we had we've previously for a few years we were hosting a veteran hunt down here in Texas. Bringing a veteran in from anywhere in the country. It was open application, and somebody to which it would be a unique experience, right? Hunt whitetail. And so, long story short, first year I ever did this, name's Mark Zorich, came from California. Awesome dude. Never hunted whitetail before. He hunted bear and blacktail out there in California, but he had never hunted whitetail. So we had an awesome whitetail hunt. He shot a doe and a nice buck. But we're taking it back, and I had asked him, I was like, so what's your plan? This was in the preparatory stage of this hunt. I was like, what's your plan for the meat? Here's some options, right? You can donate if you don't want to take it. You can arrange to have it taken back with you. You can have it processed down here. I started throwing out options, and he's like, oh no, I'm just going to quarter it up and take it with me. I was like, okay. And he's like, no. And she said, trust me, I've done this before. It'll be fine. I did this with an axis deer in Hawaii. I was like, okay, I trust you. That's fine. So we get to talking more about this. He's like, yeah. And he starts breaking out of his suitcase these like Yeti bags, like the soft cooler Yeti bags, right?
Yeah.
Starts breaking those out. And the deer between the doe that he shot earlier in the weekend and then the buck being on ice in the 3-hour drive to the airport, they were able to cool enough that we put them in these bags and put some ice in there and stuff with them. But he's just putting them in these cooler bags and he's just wrapping them up and everything. And he has his big bag that he had all his clothes and everything in. He stuffs the heaviest one down in there that he's going to check. He takes another Yeti cooler bag and he checks just that bag. He had it wrapped up in duct tape and everything. And then the lightest one, he carried it on with him, just full of venison, just straight off the deer basically. And it was so funny because him and I, like, we were trying to let that buck, he shot that buck on the last morning, on Sunday morning. His flight was leaving Sunday evening to go home. So we got that buck taken care of. We got it on ice. I take him to the airport that evening, and we're like in the airport parking garage in the back of our truck, like shoving deer meat into this soft cooler and wrapping it in duct tape. And people are walking past us with their suitcases looking at us like, what are these guys doing? I'm like, dude, somebody's going to think we just killed somebody in this parking garage. This is sketchy, man. But, man, I was nervous, too, because I was like, man, what do you tell the TSA guy? Like when you walk up there, he goes, I just tell him that he said that I have a deer in here. He's like, he said, I'm just obviously honest about what's in my bag and everything. And he goes, in Hawaii, enough people, like, I guess enough people come down there to hunt, and they obviously have, if they're leaving and they're taking it with them, they're getting on a plane. So he goes, they're pretty used to it in general terms, seeing this kind of stuff. He just says, I assume that this is Texas, so people in Texas will probably be the same way. I was like, well, you're assuming a lot, but let's see what happens. He got through no problems. He said the dude didn't even blink an eye. He carried on a Yeti bag full of venison onto the airplane and flew home.
I just started working for the TSA, and I asked questions about that. I was like, people come through in the fall with bags of meat, and they're like, oh yeah, all the time, you'll see it. So that's funny.
I forgot about that. I forgot that you work over there now. Yeah, that's crazy, man.
I've done it a bunch, and what's funny is, you know, they get that little slip of paper. It's like the TSA looked at your bag every time. Yeah. Every time it's a bag full of meat, I get that little piece of paper. Yeah. But I've done it axis deer. I had elk meat in Washington, and I wanted to bring some to my sister in Colorado, so I just filled up a check bag, and all frozen, and you know the bottom of the plane is cold, so it like stays pretty nice down there. So the flights are not really a big deal. But I've taken a bunch of elk to Colorado. Then she had a hog, and she traded me the elk meat for hog meat, so I took a bunch of hog meat back with me to Washington at that time. So I've done it a bunch of times, man, and it's never been a problem.
Well, and he's not on here tonight, but our staff manager, Todd, now that I'm thinking about it, he did the same when he came down here and killed the hog down here in Texas with me. He took the meat back. I know for sure that we went to the store, we bought a cheap cooler and put the meat in the cooler, wrapped the cooler in duct tape, and he checked the cooler, I'm pretty sure, when he brought it back. But I want to say he had a carry-on with some meat in it too. But I would have to ask him to make sure. Now I'm curious. But
yeah, one of the sketchier times I've transported meat, I shot an elk 2 seasons ago in Colorado, and then I put it in my giant bag, like the entire elk fits in this thing. And then I put a bunch of ice in there. But when I went back to my Colorado house, which I was renting out, and I dumped out all the ice water, and then I put a piece of cardboard on top, dry ice inside, and then I drove it all the way to Texas. So, but that was hot. Like September in Texas is hot, and it made it there, and it's delicious. But I was like, if I'd have gone another half hour, I was a little worried about that meat. But again, giant cooler, dry ice, it works pretty well.
Yeah, when I shot that pronghorn, I drove up to Montana and drove back. Yeah. So that's a 24-hour drive, not including just about a 24-hour drive, not including the stopping to rest. Yeah. But luckily, Drew had, where we were staying, there was a deep freeze up there. So, like, the night that we killed it, we processed the whole thing that night ourselves, and then packaged it up, put it in the deep freeze so it was frozen solid to start the drive home. And I would stop, pretty much any time I'd stop and get more ice, and kept it on ice and everything, and it made it home. It made it home just fine. But yeah, I started looking at that temperature gauge for the outside temperature on the truck. As I start getting back into Texas, I'm like, this isn't Montana anymore. It's 80 degrees again.
Yeah, man.
In October.
With my elk, it wasn't frozen, man. It was just, quartered it, threw it in the bag, threw some ice in there, so it wasn't frozen, and I was getting real iffy. I ended up rolling into the processor just after they closed, which made me furious. But they had one of those, in Texas, they just got these shipping containers that are fridges, so I just put it all in there, and it worked out just fine.
Yeah.
Although they did destroy my game bags, which was a shame.
Well,
good game bags.
John might be able to speak to this a little bit just from his experience with elk hunting, or you as well. But I know with the elk that we as a hunting party got up there in Idaho last year, that was one thing that again, just being from Texas and hunting down here my whole life, I wasn't as familiar with. Just you kill an elk on day 5 of your hunt, and you still got a couple more days of hunting, right? What do you do with that? And they create a meat pole there in camp, and strung it up and everything, kept it in the shade, and I mean we're already camping at 6,800 feet, and it's pretty cool as it is. But I mean the meat kept fine, but just me in my mind, I'm just like, we're gonna leave this meat outside for days, and but I mean, one, what else are you gonna do with it, and two, it's it's worked for centuries, I guess. So I can't speak as well, I guess, to the science of it, but it one of those things that for a Texas boy just seems kind of foreign. So
I shot my moose last year, but we were at 11,000 feet when we shot that thing, and we just hung it in a tree for like 2 days, and it's fine. I mean, it's 40 degrees at night. That's plenty cold, and as long as it's in the shade, it's good to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever we'd kill anything, if it was going to be a little while before the pack crew showed up, I'd just bury it in limbs or stick it in the shade or something.
Well, Michael, I know we're past an hour now on our podcasting and hanging out this evening, but man, I do appreciate you coming on the show and everything, and chatting it up with us for a little bit. I do want to, like I mentioned, we're past an hour. It's not like we have to stop now, but I wanted to give everybody else on here a chance if you've had a story pop in your mind, based on any of the other stories that have been told, kind of like I had, where it's like, oh yeah, that makes me think of that. Wanted to see if anybody had anything else that they wanted to share before we call it an evening. Mike, I'll throw it to you first.
Well, I do have one. It reminded, whenever you were talking about hunting with your dad, it was funny. I was with my wife's uncle, and I think it's for the first three to 4 days of gun season. It might start the second week. You can shoot predator animals. Well, he's an older gentleman, and we're both sitting in the blind together. We haven't been seeing much, and he's over there nodding off. And he hunts with a 300 Win Mag, and I see a coyote run down, and I'm watching it run down behind the blind out into the field where we're supposed to be shooting deer. There wasn't any. And I'm over there, and I'm trying to get his attention. He's sound asleep. So eventually, I'm just watching. All I hear is the window slide open. He throws the gun down on the thing and shoots, and looks at me and says, "You're supposed to tell me you were supposed to shoot those." I said, "You were sleeping. I couldn't get your attention." He was like so mad that I didn't wake him up. I said, "Well, I was going to shoot it," and he goes, "Too late. I already got it now." It's just a funny story that I remembered it. I laughed so hard after that, and I said, "You can't get nothing past this guy." You know what I mean?
That's great.
That's awesome. Marissa, what about you? You got any other stories that have popped into your mind throughout the conversation this evening?
Just like kind of what Mike was talking about, like when he's hunting with his dad. Those are some of like my fondest memories that I have, and actually probably one of the same stories. That man sound asleep, and he's impossible to wake up. A good one is when I was falling asleep. I think I was like maybe 9 or 10, and apparently I was snoring. I was very tired, and he's like, "Wake up!" He's nudging me. I'm like, "Okay, I'm up." Fall asleep again. Wake up. And then eventually it gets to the point where he is then head tilted back, mouth wide open, just sawing logs. I'm like, "Okay, wake up." Like I'm tapping him. I'm like pushing his leg. I'm doing anything that I can. I'm like, hey, it's gotten to the point where I'm like a little forcefully slapping him on the shoulder now, just nothing. Not not even a chance he's gonna wake up. And so I'm like, whatever. I forget about it, let the man sleep. He sits up, I'm like nodding off again, and he's like, hey, there's a deer out there. I'm like, how do you just wake up and know that it's out there? Like, you just opened your eyes. You were fast asleep for like 3 hours.
Can't put anything past him.
No, you can't. I don't know. I don't have those instincts. I don't have the spidey sense that he has.
I have that's an amazing story, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have something here. Mike Lee just tweeted that he's pulling the public land sales provision from the big beautiful bill.
Dude, let's
Yes.
go.
Yeah, he just tweeted. He said, over the past, I read it, but over the
Please
past several
do.
weeks, I've spent a lot of time listening to members of the community, local leaders, and stakeholders across the country. While there has been a tremendous amount of misinformation, shut up, Mike. He didn't. That was me. That was not Mike. And in some cases, outright lies about my bill. Many people brought forward sincere concerns because of the strict constraints of the budget that's a word. Reconciliation process, I was unable to secure clear, enforceable safeguards to guarantee that these lands would be sold only to American families, not to China, not to BlackRock, and not to any foreign interests. For that reason, I've made the decision to withdraw the federal land sales provision from the bill. He goes on, but at that point, that's all we need to hear. So not 1 acre, right, guys?
Not 1 acre.
1 acre.
Keep it
That's
public.
Yep.
Yep. He says he's going to continue to pursue this, but not in this bill. So the current bullet has been dodged, but we got to keep fighting.
Yeah. Well, and you hit the nail on the head with that for sure. I mean, at the time this episode's hitting the channels, this news has been out now. If you're tuning into the live show, you're getting to hear from us, I guess. So
Yeah, right.
even better. But yeah, I did a podcast earlier this week with John Stallone from Howl for Wildlife, and that episode that we just put out, and that was a big emphasis in that conversation, was just that, like, after 127, we can't let our guard down, right? After this,
Yep.
regardless of how this turns out, which it sounds like this is working the way it needs to, we can't let our guard down, because if it's not this, it's going to be something else, and it's only a matter of time before it's the next thing. So we have to, as
Yep.
hunters and outdoorsmen, we have to be tuned in and paying attention. So
100%.
well, John, you got anything to add before we conclude, man? Other than the big smile on your
Yeah,
face about public
I
land.
got so many stories. It's like, which one do I pick? I don't know. I'll go with the bathroom and the squirrel story in one. I was,
Oh,
off
no.
doing my business in the woods, and I got beaten in the head by something, and there's this really pissed off squirrel in this tree just plucking pine cones at me. Like, dude, I'm just doing my business in the woods. I sat there for a few minutes just getting pelted. Like, bro, what's your problem? And finished up and turned around. And apparently the log I'd been doing my business on was the one he'd been stuffing pine cones in for his winter food supply. So I just crapped in his pantry. So, that was a moment of elk hunting comedy that I look back fondly on.
There you go. That's funny. I hate squirrels when I'm out in the woods. Just all day, all day.
It's endless.
Yeah, they make it so much
Here's something
worse.
that I'm working on personally. This isn't a story, but I've heard of a lot of like South African trackers and stuff, and they use the animals around to know where other animals are. And so I'm trying to like know that, like, okay, hopefully the animals don't realize what I realize, that the squirrel's going off means I'm here. But I'm trying to listen to other animals farther off and leverage that, because it's for real. Like, those squirrels go crazy when anything is nearby. So pay attention to those things.
I've got this harebrained idea to find like a magpie or a raven or something and train it to find elk for me. They're always around right after you kill. You're sitting there and you can throw scraps to them. Like, guys, you just show me where the elk are. You got an endless supply.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, I think I don't know where I heard this from, but ravens learned that wolves kill things, And
Yeah.
so they would signal to the wolves and lead the wolves to elk and things so that the wolves would come and kill them and then they would get the scraps. So they're smart
Exactly.
birds, man. So you're on to something, John. You're on to something.
Can't use a
We'll talk,
drone.
we'll talk,
Nothing
we'll
about a
talk
raven.
business later.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I got one more for you, and then we'll call it a night. And a lot of these stories have made me think of it. Mike, your story about just whipping that gun out and having at it, kind of made me think of it. We were on this elk hunt last year, and this is we didn't have good footage of this moment, so it didn't make it into the film, but. I forget which day it was. It was before we actually got on the bull. And there's 4 of us in camp. There's myself. There's Galen, who's the host, the guy that kind of is run the show, our guide, so to speak. He's my friend, but he knows more about these mountains than anybody else, so he's kind of leading the way. Chris, who's also a newer elk hunter, and then Ben was also in camp with us. Ben didn't have an elk tag, but he had like a bear tag and something else, deer tag. So Ben hung back at camp that morning, and the 3 of us went up, and we're walking, and Galen's way out in front. I'm in the back because I'm a Texas boy and I have the wrong boots on, and I'm huffing and puffing and struggling. And I forget what kind of rifle Galen had because. I'm a bow guy. I bow hunt, and rifles aren't my jam normally for hunting. But it was a big and loud one, and so this fox runs out in front of him, and he just throws his rifle up and pops him, just drops him right there, no warning to us. So we're just shocked, like what just happened? Just our ears are ringing and everything, and we're just like, what is happening? He's like, I shot a fox. We're like, why? Why we're here hunting elk. He's like, oh yeah, I probably should have thought about that. I just reacted. So we go up and we go to this fox and everything and stuff, and yeah, he made a great shot. We end up moving on, continuing along the way that we were going. We get back to camp that night, and Ben is there, and he's like, what are y'all doing up there on the mountain? We're like, did you hear the shot? He goes, yeah, I heard the shot. He goes, I heard the shot, and I ran up the mountain because I thought y'all killed an elk, and I thought you would need help, and I'm wandering all over the hillside looking for y'all, trying to figure out where you guys were, and finally I come across this fox that doesn't have a chest cavity anymore, and I'm trying to figure out, and all of a sudden it starts making sense, and I realize I've been wasting the last couple of hours running around the mountainside looking for y'all when y'all just shot a fox with your elk hunting rifle. So, but
that guy's got great ears that he made it directly to the fox just hearing one shot.
I mean, we were
That's
impressed,
amazing.
man. We were like, man, I'm surprised you even found it. He goes, yeah, I found it, but he said, yeah, I was looking all over for y'all, and finally I walk across this rock and there's all this blood there and find this fox without a chest cavity. So
2 years ago, I was with a buddy. We're driving down a dirt road on our way to our evening hunt for elk, and he just hits the brakes and goes, cover your ears. And he just takes his pistol, and he's driving, takes his pistol, hangs it out the window, and just starts unloading. And then we're like, what the hell's going on? And he's like, I hate coyotes. Then there's just a coyote like 150 yards out, and he's got his pistol out the window just shooting rounds. He did not hit that coyote, but it was an experience, a shocking experience. So I've been there.
yeah. Oh man, yeah. And even that story makes me think of another one. But I mean, we could probably go on and on for all night if we had the time. But I am going to wrap up the podcast though, and bring it in. So I appreciate all of y'all joining us, but Michael especially, thank you for agreeing to come on the show and join us as a guest and sharing some stories with us here this evening. I enjoyed it, man. Thank you.
Yeah, man, it's always fun to get together with a bunch of folks and tell a little bit of lies, a little bit of truth. So thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Absolutely.
Folks, thank you all for listening to the Fall Obsession Podcast. Be sure you guys go check out the Hunting Stories podcast on social media and all the podcast apps, all that kind of stuff. Go listen. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you next week for another episode.